Taunts echo through the hallways, books hit the floor, and a rucksack lands in the trash. Each jab a test, each laugh a dare. What they don't know is the storm brewing beneath Emily's calm. Years of sweat in a Detroit gym, fists pounding pads, a body honed for battle. She's not just a survivor, she's a fighter, trained to strike only when the moment demands it. One showdown in the shadow of the schoolyard will shatter their illusions, turning whispers into gasps and bullies into lessons. The corridors of Brooklyn High buzzed with the chaotic energy of a typical school day. Lockers slammed shut with metallic clangs, sneakers squeaked against the polished linoleum floors, and the air carried a faint mix of gym sweat and cafeteria fries. Students milled about in clusters, their voices blending into a symphony of gossip, laughter, and hurried conversations. Amid this cacophony, Emily Wilson stood alone, clutching her books tightly against her chest. Her first week at Brooklyn High had been anything but welcoming, and today was no exception. Emily, a 17-year-old transfer student from Detroit, had hoped for a fresh start. Her modest outfit, a simple hoodie and jeans, set her apart from the designer-clad crowd that dominated the hallways. Her dark curls framed a face that betrayed both quiet determination and the faintest hint of vulnerability. She had learned long ago to keep her head down and her emotions in check, but the weight of being the new girl in a school where cliques ruled was beginning to wear on her. As she navigated the crowded hallway, her path was abruptly blocked by Ashley Johnson, the queen bee of Brooklyn High. Ashley's perfectly styled blonde hair and designer jacket screamed privilege, and her entourage of equally polished friends followed her every move like a pack of loyal shadows. With a smirk that oozed arrogance, Ashley stepped directly into Emily's path, forcing her to stop short. Well, look who we have here," Ashley drawled, her voice dripping with mockery. "The new girl thinks she's someone special, huh?" Before Emily could respond, Ashley shoved her backward, causing her to stumble against the cold metal of the lockers. The impact reverberated through the hallway, drawing the attention of nearby students. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd as Ashley's friends joined in, their voices a chorus of cruel amusement. Emily's heart pounded as she steadied herself, her knuckles tightening around the edges of her books. The sting of humiliation burned in her chest, but she refused to let it show. She met Ashley's gaze with a calm intensity that belied the storm brewing inside her. "What's the matter, new girl?" Ashley taunted, leaning in closer. "Show us what you've got, or maybe you should just pack up and leave." The laughter around them grew louder, a cruel soundtrack to Emily's silent resolve. She could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on her, waiting for her reaction. Her fingers curled into fists at her sides, but she remained motionless, her expression unreadable. Years of training in kickboxing had taught her the value of restraint, and she knew better than to let her anger dictate her actions. The atmosphere in the hallway was electric, charged with the tension of the confrontation. The smell of sweat and cheap perfume mingled with the metallic tang of the lockers, creating an almost suffocating backdrop to the scene. Students whispered to one another, their voices carrying fragments of speculation and anticipation. "Is she gonna fight back?" one murmured. "No way, she's too scared," another replied. Emily's silence seemed to unnerve Ashley, whose smirk faltered for a brief moment. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" Ashley sneered, her voice louder now, as if trying to reassert her dominance. But Emily didn't flinch. She stood her ground, her dark eyes locked onto Ashley's with an unwavering calm that hinted at a strength far greater than anyone in the hallway could comprehend. As the laughter and whispers continued to swirl around her, Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. She knew this wasn't the time to act. Not yet. Her silence was her shield, her refusal to give Ashley the satisfaction of a reaction. And in that moment, as the tension in the hallway reached its peak, Emily's quiet resolve spoke louder than any words or actions could. The next day at Brooklyn High felt even more oppressive, as if the corridors themselves were saturated with anticipation of further torment. As Emily made her way through the bustling hallways during her classes, the cruel echoes of yesterday's encounter with Ashley still reverberated in her mind. She walked with a guarded calm, every step measured, trying to blend into the swirling tapestry of chatter and clattering lockers. Yet, despite her best efforts, the cruelty of the popular clique was far from over. It started in the library. While Emily settled into a quiet corner to catch her breath between classes, she heard a familiar, mocking voice that caused her heart to sink. Ashley Johnson, accompanied by two of her closest friends, strode into the library with deliberate swagger. In a flash, Ashley snatched a pile of textbooks from a nearby table, books that Emily had been slowly collecting for an upcoming assignment. With a derisive laugh, she tossed the books in the air, letting them fall haphazardly on the floor. "Looks like somebody doesn't know how to take care of her things," Ashley jeered, her tone dripping with condescension as the other students chuckled. The humiliation wasn't over yet. As Emily gathered her scattered textbooks, she felt a sharp tug on the strap of her worn backpack. Before she could comprehend what was happening, one of Ashley's cronies snatched the backpack from her shoulder and hurled it into a nearby trash bin. The clatter of plastic against metal echoed down the quiet aisle, and students nearby exchanged shocked glances before some stifled yet unmistakable laughter broke out. Every act of degradation deepened the sense of isolation that Emily had desperately tried to mask. Her hands, which had been trembling slightly as she stoically picked up each textbook, now clenched into fists. Unspoken, her eyes hardened with a resolve that was forming quietly within her. Throughout the day, the relentless bullying continued. In the crowded cafeteria, where voices roared like an unruly tide, Ashley and her group made it their mission to taunt Emily at every opportunity. They called her weak and soft, whispering cruel remarks that spread like wildfire from table to table. Every remark was designed to chip away at her confidence, branding her as an easy target in a school where popularity reigned supreme. It seemed that every corridor, every classroom corner was tainted with the venom of their ridicule. And though Emily endured each slight with a quiet dignity, her lips pressed into a thin line and her gaze fixed steadfastly ahead, the simmering anger and hurt were unmistakably hidden behind her determined composure. At the end of the day, once the final bell rang and the hallways emptied with hurried steps toward the exits, Emily lingered near her locker. The weight of the day's harassment was unbearable, but it also fanned a spark of resolve deep within her. In the dim light of a nearly deserted corridor, she opened her locker, finding her books still in a disheveled mess and her belongings reeking of careless derision. With shaking hands, she clutched one of her notebooks, the pages scrawled with the details of every degrading remark and incident. Every note was a silent rebellion, a promise to herself that she would not allow this behavior to define her. Caught in the interplay between pain and determination, Emily made a decision. The whispered accusations, "Show us what you can do, or just pack up and leave," that had followed her throughout the day became the final nudge she needed. She would not allow tomorrow or any day to continue in this vein of humiliation. With a deep, steadying breath, she stepped away from her locker and made her way toward the school's courtyard. There, in the open space drenched with the fading daylight and resonating with the distant sounds of departing students, she resolved to confront her tormentors. As she walked, every echo of footsteps, every murmur from passing classmates, and even the ghost of yesterday's laughter fueled her determination. Emily's dark eyes, once filled with quiet sorrow, now burned with a fierce readiness to reclaim her dignity. Without uttering a word, she set her jaw and clenched her fists. The day's cruelty had prepared her for what was to come. Though she remained silent now, that silence planted the seeds of change, promising that soon, she would show everyone that beneath her modest exterior lay a strength they could no longer afford to underestimate. After the final bell signaled the end of the school day, the tension that had been simmering throughout Brooklyn High reached its boiling point in the courtyard. The space was dimly lit by the fading autumn light slanting through high windows, the air cool and heavy with anticipation. Groups of students had already gathered in loose clusters around the perimeter, their chatter falling to hushed whispers as they sensed that something dangerous was about to unfold. Emily Wilson, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest, made her way to a secluded corner of the courtyard. Every step she took echoed the silent promise of retribution. Earlier that day, when Ashley Johnson and her clique had tormented her by sabotaging her textbooks and even hurling her backpack into the trash. The pain had been unbearable. The final provocation, the challenge to meet after school, had been the spark that ignited the resolve inside her. Now, with that same quiet determination that had carried her through countless hours of hard training in kickboxing back in Detroit, Emily set out to confront her tormentors once and for all. At the far end of the courtyard, beneath the shadow of an old oak, Ashley Johnson lounged with her band of friends. Her usual smirk was in place, and her posture exuded arrogance as she recounted the day's humiliations to a couple of onlookers. "What did the new girl say today?" one of her cronies goaded, and Ashley's laughter rang out, sharp and dismissive. Without warning, a deep silence fell over the gathering as Emily approached. The corridor of students parted like a slow-moving tide, every eye fixed on the pair. Emily's fists were clenched at her sides, her knuckles white against the faded fabric of her worn jacket, yet her face remained composed as though tempered in a forge of resilience. As she drew near, Ashley's mocking smirk shifted into a sneer. "So, you finally gathered some courage?" Ashley taunted, her voice loud enough for everyone within earshot. "Are you really ready to show us what you got? Or are you just here to cry like a little baby?" The challenge reverberated across the courtyard, and for a split second, time seemed to slow. The unsuspecting audience leaned in, their faces a mixture of amusement and anticipation. Emily looked directly into Ashley's eyes, a silent battle of wills unfolding between a quiet strength and overconfident mockery. Without a word, the air charged with imminent clash, the first blow was struck. In a flash, Ashley lunged forward as if to land a verbal barb, but instead, her fist sailed through empty air as Emily's training kicked in. Emily sidestepped with a fluid grace honed by years of discipline and rigorous physical training. With a controlled motion, she countered, a rapid, precise strike that sent Ashley staggering backward and crashing unceremoniously onto the hard, cold pavement of the courtyard. The sound of the impact was muffled by the whoosh of a sudden breeze. However, it reverberated in the stunned silence that followed. "Enough," Emily said quietly, her voice steady even as her heart thundered. "I didn't come here to be your punching bag." The intensity in her eyes, calm yet unmistakably fierce, silenced any talk or laughter from the onlookers. In that instant, the courtyard transformed, from a space of juvenile mockery into an arena where respect was being reclaimed at a single, defiant moment. As Ashley struggled to push herself to her feet, dazed from the blow, her cronies exchanged uncertain glances. Some gasped softly, others fumbled to record the unexpected turn of events with their cell phones. The power dynamic had unmistakably shifted. What began as an effort by Ashley to assert her status had now become a testament to Emily's quiet strength and the deadly precision of her kickboxing training. For a long heartbeat, the challenge hung in the air. Then, as if summoning the courage to finally speak, Ashley sputtered, "This isn't over. You'll pay for this." Her voice, high with fear, betrayed the arrogance that had defined her until that moment. But before she could recover, Emily's unwavering gaze locked onto hers, and all retorts died in the silence. A murmur started among the students, a mix of astonishment and hushed praise, as they began to grasp that Emily wasn't the fragile new girl they had mocked. She was much more. The crowd was visibly shaken. The very energy that had supported the bullies just moments ago was now shifting. Emily, breathing steadily, remained standing, her eyes glistening with unshed tears of both pain and resolve. In that charged moment of triumphant composure, as the shocked onlookers recorded every detail on their phones, Emily whispered, "I didn't come looking for trouble, but you left me no choice." Before any further explanation could be made, the courtyard fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing on everyone present. The battle was over for now. The clash had been swift and decisive, and all eyes were fixed on a trembling Ashley lying on the ground, the victor's silence speaking volumes. The tense silence in the courtyard was abruptly broken by a determined voice. As students began to gather around the scene, Emily Wilson, still standing tall though her knuckles dripped with the residue of adrenaline, addressed the hushed crowd with measured calm. "Listen, everyone," she said, her voice steady yet imbued with a quiet strength. What happened here wasn't about getting into a fight for pride's sake. It was about defending dignity against relentless bullying. Her eyes, dark with unspoken pain and resilience, roamed over the onlookers. She knew that this moment could set the tone for change. Out of the periphery of the stunned gathering, Jacob stepped forward. Known for his quiet demeanor and attentive gaze, the 17-year-old classmate had secretly recorded the events that had unfolded earlier in the corridor and then in the gym during that fateful confrontation. He held up his phone, his hand trembling slightly as he projected the video onto a nearby portable display screen secured by one of the teachers. The grainy footage played, showing every detail: the sneering mockery, the deliberate act of trashing Emily's textbooks, and the moment when Ashley Johnson shamelessly tossed Emily's backpack into a trash bin, as if it were nothing more than a toy. The screen captured the scorn in Ashley's eyes, the laughter of her group, and the pain etched on Emily's face as she endured the humiliation. "Look at this," Jacob said softly, his voice carrying across the quiet murmur of whispers. "This is what really happened today. You can see every act of disrespect, every word, every sneer." His demonstration was simple. The evidence was there, raw and unedited, and it invalidated the narrative that the bullies had tried so hard to construct. Emily nodded in acknowledgement, feeling a surge of vindication wash over her. "I told you all. I wasn't weak. I did what was necessary to defend my dignity," she explained, speaking not only for herself but for every one of those who had been silenced in the shadow of bullying. Her tone wavered for a moment as she recalled the pain of being shoved, of having her belongings desecrated. Yet she quickly channeled that pain into resolve. This video clearly shows that Ashley's actions were not only cruel but premeditated. It's one thing to bully a quiet new student. It's another thing entirely when you plan it out by sabotaging someone's school supplies and trying to demean them publicly. At that moment, as the video continued to loop subtle details, the way Ashley's eyes darted with malicious glee and her cronies exchanged smug smiles, the atmosphere in the courtyard shifted even further. A palpable chill fell over the group as whispers grew into louder discussions. Even those who had once smiled at the bully's antics now cast sidelong glances of disapproval. Ashley, standing a few feet away from the crowd with her once confident posture crumbling, began to fidget nervously. Her smug demeanor evaporated, revealing a glimmer of panic. Face flushed and eyes darting, she tried to interject. "This is all just a big misunderstanding," she stammered, her voice barely rising above a whisper. But her protest was met with a reaction that left no doubt. Her voice, feeble and uncertain, only confirmed what the video had already exposed. Unable to contain the mounting pressure of the undeniable evidence and the weight of growing public disapproval, a tremor of concern ran through those whose responsibility it was to maintain order. A teacher who had watched from the sidelines stepped forward and pulled out his phone to make a call. "I'm calling Director Harper right now," he announced quietly yet firmly. "This behavior can't be allowed to continue. It's time someone in authority steps in." The teacher's words, initially murmured, rapidly spread through the crowd, and soon a ripple of agreement filled the air. Emily's heart pounded as she sensed the tide turning. The humiliation and silent pain of the past few days were now giving way to a collective reckoning. "We deserve to be treated with respect," she said, her voice loud and unwavering now that she had the support of her peers. "No one should be bullied simply for being themselves." The clarity of her words resonated with everyone present. As more students began to nod and a few even cheered softly in solidarity, the call to Director Harper was completed. The unmistakable announcement over the speaker system, stated in the teacher's measured tone, firmly declared that a meeting with the school's administration was imminent. The collective murmur of approval that now filled the corridor was like a heartbeat of change, a promise that the bullying and cruelty would not go unchallenged. In that charged moment, as the evidence was laid bare on the screen and the call to the director was made, it was clear that the balance of power was shifting. The quiet strength of Emily and the undeniable proof provided by Jacob had sparked an uprising among the students, a movement that demanded accountability from those who had sought to tear someone down for looking different. With the storm of injustice gathering, the stage was set for the next chapter, a confrontation with authority that would determine the future of Brooklyn High. Later that day, Director Harper's stern face appeared on every classroom monitor and hallway announcement. In her softly lit office, lined with mahogany bookshelves and decorated with thoughtful portraits of past leaders, she had convened an emergency meeting with key staff and select students. The murmur in the hallways hushed as word spread that Director Harper was about to address the incident, a moment that promised accountability and a turning point for Brooklyn High. In the office, Director Harper sat behind her large oak desk, her expression resolute and compassionate. Before her lay the evidence gathered by Jacob's recording and the written notes detailing the bullying incidents. With careful deliberation, she reviewed the video clip that captured Ashley Johnson's consistent mockery and demeaning actions, as well as the provocative incident where Emily's backpack was tossed into the trash. The images and voices, raw and unguarded, painted a damning portrait of behavior that had no place in the halls of Brooklyn High. When the meeting was called to order, Director Harper's voice resonated with quiet authority. "Thank you for joining me on such short notice," she began, addressing a group that included several teachers, student representatives, and, importantly, Emily Wilson and Ashley Johnson. "Today, we must confront an unfortunate truth." Pausing, her eyes swept the room, lingering on Ashley, whose confident posture now faltered under the weight of scrutiny. "I have reviewed undisputed video evidence and witness testimony that clearly show a pattern of bullying and disrespect directed towards a fellow student." A heavy silence fell over her audience as whispers died. Director Harper continued in a measured tone. "Our school is built on respect, integrity, and inclusiveness. The incident captured clearly demonstrates that these values were betrayed. It is with regret that I must announce that, effective immediately, Ashley Johnson will be suspended from participating in any school activities, pending further disciplinary action by the administration." Her words were delivered with a compassion that balanced justice. The decision was firm yet not vindictive. Turning toward Emily, Director Harper's tone softened into clear praise. "Emily Wilson, you have shown remarkable restraint and dignity in the face of relentless bullying. Your calm response and measured strength under pressure set an inspiring example for our entire school community. I commend you for standing firm, even when you could have easily succumbed to overwhelming anger." A gentle round of subdued applause broke out among the assembled teachers and a few supportive students who had witnessed the incidents, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. Director Harper then addressed the assembly more broadly. "I believe that every student deserves to feel safe and respected. I am initiating an anti-bullying campaign at Brooklyn High, with new policies and support programs aimed at ensuring that such behavior is not tolerated and that every voice, regardless of its volume, is heard and valued." The promise in her words rippled through the room. For those who had long suffered under the oppressive weight of cruelty, this was a beacon of hope. Meanwhile, in a hushed corner of the room, Jacob exchanged a subtle, relieved nod with Emily, both aware that his recorded evidence had been instrumental in today's decision. Ashley, sitting stiffly with downcast eyes, tried to mutter a defense. It was just a misunderstanding. But her voice was drowned in the quiet resolve of Director Harper's message. With the meeting drawing to a close, Director Harper offered one final admonition. "Let today remind us that bullying is not a rite of passage but a detestable violation of our community's core values. I trust that we will all work together to make Brooklyn High a safe and respectful environment for everyone." Her words were a call to collective responsibility, a declaration that the school would no longer be a stage for cruelty. As the meeting dispersed, many teachers whispered promises of increased vigilance and rounded measures to support students' well-being. Emily's fellow students approached her, whispering words of encouragement and admiration, while a palpable air of vindication filled the room. The evidence, undeniable and uncompromised, had set Brooklyn High on a new course, one in which respect and accountability were non-negotiable. In the weeks following the emergency assembly, a palpable transformation began to sweep through Brooklyn High. The incident, once confined to the hushed corridors and ignited by the brave stand of Emily Wilson, had now become the spark for a school-wide revolution. Every student and teacher seemed to carry a new awareness about the importance of respect and dignity, as if the bitter lesson of bullying had been etched into the very walls of the building. In morning assemblies and classroom discussions, the echo of Director Harper's words, "Bullying is not a rite of passage, but a violation of our community's core values," resonated deeply. A series of student-led forums was organized, where peers spoke candidly about the pain inflicted by ridicule and the power of a single courageous voice. The once isolated figure of Emily Wilson was now celebrated as a symbol of resilience. Her quiet strength and measured response in the face of relentless bullying had inspired many, and news of the incident spread beyond the school, sparking conversations on local social media channels. Emily, who had once endured humiliation in silence, now found herself at the center of a heartening transformation. With the support of her classmates, she became a leader in the newly established anti-bullying campaign, spearheaded by the school administration. Workshops on empathy, respect, and conflict resolution were introduced, and an anonymous reporting system was implemented to ensure that every student's voice could be heard. The atmosphere in the hallways shifted, from raucous jeers and sneers to thoughtful conversations and encouraging nods. Even students who had once laughed at the cruelty of popular clique leader Ashley Johnson now looked on with a mixture of remorse and resolve, having witnessed the change that accountability can bring. Ashley, whose aggressive behavior had once ruled the corridors with arrogant confidence, saw her influence evaporate almost overnight. No longer were her jeers met with easy acceptance. Instead, her name began to be spoken in hushed tones as a cautionary tale of what happens when cruelty goes unchecked. Her demotion and subsequent isolation within the school system underscored a new era where no student was above the rules of decency. The viral video of the confrontation, captured by witness Jacob, became an emblem of the school's resolve, inspiring not only Brooklyn High but also nearby schools to review their own anti-bullying policies and interventions. Director Harper, buoyed by the positive change, launched a campus-wide initiative called Every Voice Matters. This program partnered students with mentors and provided platforms for those who had felt marginalized. Posters splashed with inspirational quotes, classroom discussions about kindness, and community service projects became common. Teachers began to emphasize that true strength lay not only in academic achievement but in character and compassion, a lesson that was now vividly illustrated by Emily's actions. Late one afternoon, as the final bell rang across the campus, Emily lingered on the steps outside the school, taking in the sight of students milling about with a renewed sense of closeness. Jacob, seated nearby with his phone in hand, approached her quietly. "I've seen how people are talking about what happened," he said softly. "I think you've changed things here." Emily offered a gentle, reflective smile, the quiet dignity in her eyes matching his genuine tone. "I didn't want trouble," she replied. "I just wanted to be treated with respect, and maybe if we all stand up together, we can stop this for good." Across the campus, the ripple effects of the event reached every corner. Classrooms, corridors, and even the infirmary buzzed with conversations about respect, accountability, and the need for empathy. Parents expressed relief knowing that their children were now in an environment that no longer rewarded bullying but instead celebrated unity. The transformative experience led to a marked increase in student engagement, and the once divisive cliques began to dissolve into a more cohesive community. In time, Emily resumed her training at the kickboxing gym, finding solace and strength in the discipline that had once prepared her to defend herself physically. But now, her inner strength shone even brighter, an emblem of both resilience and the power of peaceful resistance. Her story, immortalized in the viral video and recounted at assemblies, became a beacon for many who had long felt voiceless in the face of cruelty. I hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a comment, sharing your thoughts about it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new and equally exciting stories. See you in the next video.